This is the end of the beginning. Welcome to today's show. This is an important education for people out there who don't have an idea of what's actually going on. And it's even an important education for all of us who are awake, because sometimes we tend to forget that we live, or supposed to live, we are supposed to live in a republic, not a democracy. But people continue to repeat that we live in a democracy because of the mainstream media and all the politicians claiming that we live in a democracy. And I'm going to explain to you why they want you to think we live in a democracy versus a republic, and I'm going to show you the mind control behind it. And this is an article that came out. This shows you how stupid our society is. An article came out in the New York Times. That's right, the New York Times, not The Onion, not one of those tabloids you find at the grocery store that talks about aliens invading, coming out of someone's butt, even though those articles are probably more real and have more truth in them than the mainstream media does. But an article in the New York Times titled "Elections Are Bad for Democracy," and even hinting at the fact that we should have a lottery to choose our elected officials. You might say, well, that sounds insane. Well, the whole notion of a democracy versus a republic is insane, because we all remember, and I don't even know if they still do it anymore, but you remember when you used to pledge allegiance to the flag, which of course you should never be pledging allegiance to anything or anyone but God, but we used to have to pledge our allegiance to the flag and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God. Now, well, they probably can't say it anymore because they can't mention God in school, and they also don't want you to realize that this country was built as a republic, not a democracy. So why? The question is why? Well, in a democracy, the people are the ones who are held responsible, not the politicians. In a republic, the politicians are elected to represent us. Thus, when chaos like you're seeing right now ensues, the politicians are the ones who are held responsible. They want you to think that power is in your hands, and that all the things that are happening are because the Republicans should be blaming the Democrats and the Democrats should be blaming the Republicans, when in reality we all should be together, united, blaming all of these actors who are in Congress who are deliberately sabotaging our country and doing nothing to actually do anything or make any progress. The only thing they're trying to do is destroy, 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 divide, divide, divide. So you might recall a couple years ago, and this is probably when it really started, when our country switched from a republic to a democracy, when Barry Obama let us know that the end of the republic never looked better.
The end of the republic has never looked better. The end of the republic has never looked better.
So Barry let us know that the end of the republic never looked better because a lot of laws, a lot of things were put in place, and then the mind control was put on overdrive to convince people that this country wasn't and never was a republic, that it was always a democracy. And again, this is about sabotage, because at the end of the day, when this country starts to burn, they don't want you to think that the politicians are the ones responsible. They want you to think that it's the other political party so that they can divide us more and more and more. And that's why ridiculous articles like this come out. And it's amazing that people read this and like, oh, that's not a bad idea. We'll have a lottery. We'll elect our officials by lottery. It doesn't matter that they're in power because the people are the ones who have power. No. That's not true at all. And I'll explain the difference between the two really simply so you can see. But let me show you how heavy the mind control has been. And remember the national anthem, right? I mean, the Pledge of Allegiance, right? Every day in school you would say that.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And to the republic for which it stands.
So it was beaten back then into your head that this was a republic. Then they removed, because I'm assuming they don't do that anymore. I'm sure the only flag that you pledge allegiance to in school these days is the pride flag. But once they started removing that, then they started pushing this mind control on the youth out there that this is a democracy. Here are all your political leaders. Here is the mainstream media constantly telling us and convincing us that this is a democracy. The word republic is never used anymore.
The MAGA Republicans don't just threaten our personal rights and economic security. They're a threat to our very democracy. For a long time, we've told ourselves that American democracy is guaranteed, but it's not. We have to defend it, protect it, stand up for it, each and every one of us. The remarkable thing about American democracy is this: just enough of us, on just enough occasions, have chosen not to dismantle democracy, but to preserve democracy. We must choose that path again. There's one reason why we've been able to do all of these things: our democracy itself. It's the most fundamental thing of all. With democracy, everything's possible. I know him well, and I know the danger he presents to our democracy. There's still a contest between autocracies and democracies, and we're the leading democracy in the world.
I think it's really important for those of us who, whatever our backgrounds, experience, or political leanings might be, understand that there are certain fundamental values and institutions that maintain democracy. To know that we're in a fight and that we've got to be willing to stand up and speak out and make the case, and to understand that a lot of people in our country and around the world may have taken democracy for granted, may not have understood that in politics, no victory or defeat is permanent. You have to be constantly working to support the position that you take, and in this case, the values and the institutions that are at stake. So although I think we have a very serious and continuing threat to democracy by really taking away freedom, and how can one have freedom if one has no right to privacy, which is what you were referring to in the Dobbs decision. How can you be a participant in our democracy if at every turn there are those who want to limit, undermine, or discount your vote?
Populist appeals grounded in fear and bigotry and resentment have elevated leaders who, once they're in office, have sought to systematically undermine democratic institutions and entrench themselves in power. In my own country, the forces that unleashed mob violence on our capital are still churning out misinformation and conspiracy theories. For those of us who fervently believe in the ideals of democracy, the question is, how do we respond? And if nothing else, recent events should shake us out of complacency.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish things that simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 So you have all of these people constantly, and you don't hear Trump, you don't hear the conservatives ever come out and say that this is a republic. They just repeat what they say, and they go, oh, they're talking about, Republicans and conservatives being a threat to democracy, Trump's a threat to democracy. Whoa, buddy. Last we checked, it was a republic here. So again, why are they telling us this? Why are they doing this? People are like, well, what's the difference really? There's a huge difference. Let me show you, just simply put, the difference between the two.
Political season is at its height right now, and we're all glad to be Americans because we live in a democracy. Well, wait. Is this really a democracy?
America is not a democracy.
You see, I was talking with this guy.
My name is Ben Swan.
He does a lot of journalism about our political system.
And I am a reporter and anchor with WXIX TV in Cincinnati. I'm also the host and producer of Reality Check.
And I was trying to figure out what he meant. So we started talking about ancient Greece.
Ancient Greece was a democracy. The people had the ultimate say. So for instance, in the case of the healthcare law, instead of having lawmakers who would draft a bill and vote on a bill and then let the people know what the decision was, they would write a bill, a healthcare bill, and then all the people would go to the polls and the people would vote. And if the majority of the people said we like the healthcare law, it would become law. And if the majority of people said we don't like it, then it wouldn't become law. Everything would be based upon majority rules. But when the founders created our Constitution and our Bill of Rights, they established a form of government, and they actually determined that a democracy was the worst form of government.
The worst form of government?
Many of the founders said that democracy was nothing more than mob rule. And so they were against democracy and instead felt the correct form of government for this free nation was a republic.
Ah, yes, a republic. Yeah, to the republic for which it stands and stuff like that. So, what's a republic?
Well, a republic is a form of government. Let me start that again. A republic is a form of government where the people will go to the polls to elect men and women who represent them. And then those elected leaders create and vote on laws. The people don't vote directly on laws that affect their life. Rather, it's lawmakers who are chosen among the people. And these are supposed to be the best, the smartest, the most ethical, the most moral, the most upright men and women in a society who represent the majority of society. And that's the form of government we have in the United States. The other thing that's important to understand is the distinction between democracy and a republic is that a democracy is the rule of man ruling over each other, which our founders believe turns into mob rule. A republic is the rule of law. Laws are formed and created as a Bill of Rights or a Constitution, and then those laws are never superseded by mob rule or superseded by elected officials. They are all under law. So republic is actually the rule of law.
You heard it here. We are ruled by law in a republic.
So who is responsible then, right? You're responsible. Your neighbor's responsible. We're all responsible. These people are supposed to be elected by us. Thus, they're supposed to be working for us. They're supposed to be the employees of the people, which would mean when people start to make decisions based on what their politicians are doing and they start to push them and say, hey, we want this, we don't want mask mandate, we don't want this stuff. The politicians are supposed to listen to the people and do something about it. But instead what they're doing is convincing people of mob rule. They're convincing people that, well, mob rule, democracy is mob rule, so the people have power. And that all ties into the chaos that you're seeing with the woke movement, right? The mob movement. Well, they're canceling people, and your government officials aren't stepping in and saying, well, we shouldn't be allowed to cancel somebody's free speech just based on the fact that they disagree. But they want mob rule, because out of mob rule comes chaos, and out of chaos comes order. And these are the things that they have their hands in. These are things that they want. So they've worked really hard over the last couple of years, specifically since Barry Obama was in power. They've started to convince people that this country was something that it wasn't. It was not founded as a democracy. But why then? That's the thing that people don't get. They're like, well, why would they say it's a democracy? Everybody thinks they're one and the same. Because, again, you will be held accountable, not them. You, me, we're responsible. You people, you're the ones who asked for these laws and you're the ones who voted. What? Huh? Right? So then when they do things like Roe v. Wade, which they've done by design, these people do not care about children. They do not care about ritual sacrifice. Well, they do care about rituals. They want ritual sacrifice. They do not want to prevent that. So what's it about? Well, it keeps the people divided. Though they tell the liberals, well, the reason that you can't do it is because conservatives don't believe your body, your truth. And it goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And Congress continues to sabotage our freedom of speech, our right to bear arms, all these things that they're infringing upon. They want you to blame the people living on your block instead of blaming them. so they can sabotage this entire government structure. So when the New York Times comes out with an article like this, how do you not look at it and just go, oh, now they're even telling people that, well, voting doesn't really matter. Well, of course it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's what people need to get. I constantly see people and hear people and talk to people, and they're like, well, if we could just vote Biden out and vote in a conservative, we can stop all this chaos, because everybody sees now. See, when I started doing this on YouTube, even though I'm a new YouTuber, nobody was seeing the stuff that I was seeing then. Now everybody is seeing stuff. Everybody is like, this is horrible. They can feel it in their gut how bad this is. You're seeing direct energy weapons. You're seeing all this stuff that people used to say, well, I could never see the government doing that. People are starting to believe it now because they're like, they can feel it. They can see how the government's acting, and they're like, what are they doing? They're sabotaging everything. They're doing all this stuff. Yeah, they are. So people obviously want change. So what they're doing is they're trying to tell you that your vote counts still when it doesn't. But at the same time, they're coming out with articles saying, well, what's the point of voting really, right? We should just elect people at random, like in a random lottery. So maybe the guy who, hands out gum and cologne in the bathroom at a restaurant, maybe he should be your next governor or senator, because we'll do a lottery. And the people won't pick these people. They'll just get picked at random. And they're not really responsible. That's what the article's saying. They're not really responsible. They don't really, they're just there to talk in Congress, but they're talking on your behalf. You're the one who has the power. You're the one responsible for all this. It's insanity. These people are our elected officials. Our tax money funds these people. Not to mention the fact that, has anyone seen a politician who's living on what they're supposed to be living on, $100,000, $200,000 a year? All of them are just rich. They have multiple homes, right? They have multiple cars. They have fancy cars. On $100,000, a politician with a family is not going to be living like that. But they all seem to have $1 million, $2 million. And then on top of it, they ask you to donate to their cause. And nobody's suspicious of how they have all this money. A president's only supposed to make $350,000 a year, $400,000 a year. Obama's got 50 homes. What's he getting it from? Oh, right. They tell you, he wrote a book. Oh, he wrote a book. So he's got 5 different houses. One in Maui, one in Martha's Vineyard. Yeah, one in D.C. Sure. Nobody asks. Nobody realizes. These people aren't just power hungry. They're control hungry. And they're also not willing to ever give up the power that they have. They don't want to concede that power. And they don't ever want to take responsibility for the stuff that's going on right now. They know that they knew from the get-go when they started sabotaging this country that people were going to get angry. And they wanted to make sure that people didn't look at them and get angry at them, that they get angry at one another. And that's part of what's going on, right? The left-right divide. It's never been like this. If you're a teenager out there and you think this is normal, it's not. It's never been like this. Sure, you would know a conservative person. Like, I'm a conservative person. I'm not a Republican. I'm a Christian, obviously. I don't believe in any of this disgusting stuff going on. But Democrats never used to ask for disgusting stuff like this. They would be pro-affirmative action and things like that. And I'd say, yeah, okay, whatever. I wouldn't care. It wouldn't keep me up at night. But when you see them trying to get into your home, trying to get, when you realize that these aren't Democrats. These are communists. They want in your life. They want to meddle in your life. They want in your home. They want in your bank account. They want to know everything you're doing every second of the day. They want to listen to what you say. And then if they don't like what you say, they want to edit it, which you could see with the woke movement. It's the same thing, right? Because woke is just a fancy term for communism in this society. So again, back to the topic at hand. You have the New York Times and other outlets out there telling you we should elect people at random. Nobody's like, wait a minute, we should, because the only people that read the Times are the liberals. And they're not like, wait a minute, that's kind of weird. We voted in. No, they just go along with whatever they say. I guarantee you sooner or later in the next 10 years, they'll probably be like, we should just do a lottery because we're the ones who have the power. And they're walking around giving, taking rights away from other people, stripping rights away, which is what the government wants them to do. And then eventually the government will strip their rights away. But this is not a democracy. It's a republic. And again, they've been beating into everybody's head over the last decade that this is a democracy so that they can blame you, so that they can blame me. So we blame one another and not these actors in Congress. And as you can see, who are doing nothing. Nothing. Look at what's going on. If any of that stuff was true with Hunter Biden, Biden would have been impeached a long time ago, right? So what are they doing? Well, they're driving people crazy, but they're pretending that they're working for you. Oh, we're on it. They keep giving you little, they keep feeding their Republican army out there with little tidbits. Oh, we're close. And they do interviews every day over and over. Oh, we're very close to getting him impeached or having it impeached over and over. And nothing gets done while they're doing all this stuff behind our backs that nobody realizes, right? When they're using direct energy weapons and frying Maui and doing, frying California, all around the world, they're doing it. Nobody's talking about it, right? Oh, it's just the climate. But we got to get back to Biden. We got to get back to Trump, right? If those things were real, then Congress would actually be doing something about it. And they're supposed to be because they're working for us. But now they want you to believe that they're just representatives. We're the ones with all the power. And the reason that all this chaos is happening is because you and me and our neighbors and everybody we see. Unbelievable, the psychology that they use. Unbelievable that people don't see it. But that's why they've beaten it into your head. It is not a democracy. It's a republic. Maybe one of these days, one of the conservatives out there, like Ted Cruz or any of these puppets that go on television, will mention that and say, why do they keep calling it a democracy when it's a republic? Maybe they should get up in front of Congress and say, do you remember the Pledge of Allegiance? Huh? Since when is this a democracy and not a republic? No, because they're all working together. And they're going to blame you for all of it. I thank everybody for being here. Reminder, please sub to my backup channels if you haven't done so yet. They are linked below. There's a chance that any of the videos I've done recently, especially about Maui, will get a strike at some point when the algorithm catches up. So if you want my content, you like my content, make sure you subscribe now to those other channels. I thank you again for being here. God bless all of you as always and your families.